In Arabic, a letter with sukun means that it has no short vowels, and this sukun or consonant state in the Quran can come in two forms, either using this sign or that the letter has no signs at all. And when two letters with sukun follow one another, it can cause some trouble, and this lesson will help you deal with these problems properly. Before we get started, you need to have followed these two lessons about Hamzat al-Wasl and Hamzat al-Qat'a, since this lesson will heavily depend on your understanding of these two lessons. Also, following this lesson about stopping in longer verses is also highly recommended, even if you've seen it before, just to refresh your memory. I'll leave the links for all of these videos in the description, so check them out. Now, first of all, the phenomenon when two letters with sukun follow one another is called in Arabic iltiqa'u sakinayn, and it literally means the meeting of two consonants. And iltiqa'u sakinayn can happen within the same word and also can happen between two words. So, if two letters with sukun follow one another within the same word, there won't be any problems. You don't have to change or adjust anything. Like in Surat Al-Asr, for example. When stopping at the end of each ayah, these will turn into sukun automatically. And so, in the last word of each ayah, you will end up with iltiqa'u sakinayn, or two letters with sukun following one another within the same word. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. As you have heard, there was nothing special going on. You pronounce everything normally. However, when this happens between two words, it will cause some trouble, and this can only be one of these two situations. The first is when the first word ends with a long vowel that has no signs on top or under it, so either alif, waw, or ya without any signs, and the following word starts with Hamzat al-Wasl, which would be an alif that has this sign on top. And the second is when the first word ends with any type of tanween, and the word that comes after starts also with Hamzat al-Wasl. And remember that in both of these situations, you must keep on reading and link between the first and the second word for this to work. Since if you stop at the first word and then continue from the second, there won't be anything special going on and you won't have to change a thing. Now let's see how we can deal with the first scenario when the first word ends with a long vowel that has no signs and the following word starts with Hamzat al-Wasl. So when this happens, you will have to change one thing, which is you will not pronounce that long vowel at the end of the first word. It will be completely dropped. Why? Because otherwise you will have two letters with sukun after one another. The long vowel has no sign, so it has sukun, and the Hamzat Wasl is always followed by a sukun, and since we drop the Hamzat Wasl when we keep on reading, you end up with two letters with sukun following one another. So in that case, you will have to get rid of the long vowel that has sukun to solve the problem, like in these examples. وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي فَضَّلَنَا عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّنْ عِبَادِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Notice here we said وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. We did not say وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. That is not correct, because we need to drop the alif at the end of the word وَقَالَ. Notice how we're going to pronounce it if we just stop at the end of the first word and then continue it from the second word. وَقَالَ. الحمد لله الذي. Now, I'm not saying that you're supposed to read it like that. I'm just pointing out that this effect only happens when you keep on reading. And we say, وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. Now, I want you to have a look at this example that starts with exactly the same word, but it is not followed by a sukoon. And let's see how it sounds completely different. قال ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا قال ربنا وقال الحمد لله قال ربنا. Can you hear the difference? In this example, the alif is followed by ra that has fatha on top. So there is no reason for us to drop the alif, and that's why we said قَالَ رَبَّنَا. But in our first example, it is followed by sukoon, so that's why we drop the alif. Let's have a look at another example. وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. Here we also have the waw that has no sign on top, and it is also followed by hamzat wasl, which is dropped, which will lead us to have two letters with sukoon following one another. So that's why we dropped the waw in this example. And we said, وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. Now I want you to compare between this example and with this very similar verse, but in this case, there is no sukoon following the waw, and see how we pronounce it. وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. ذُو فَضْلٍ. ذُو الْفَضْلِ. وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ. وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ. You should be able to hear the difference when you drop the waw and when you don't drop it. One more example. قالت رسلهم أفي الله شك فاطر السماوات والأرض. Here is the same scenario. The ya has no sign on top or under, and it is followed by a lam that has sukoon. Let's compare it with another example that contains the same word, but it is not followed by sukoon to hear the difference. وَسَكَنْتُمْ فِي مَسَاكِنِ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ في مساكن أفي الله شك. And of course, we can't forget the most famous example that you must read every day in your prayer. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So we do not say اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, because the alif at the end of the first word has no sign, so it has sukoon. And the following letter in this case is not hamzat wasl, because we drop it when you keep on reading, and it is not the lam either, because it is al-shamsiyya. So the first letter that comes after the alif is the sad that has sukoon. And the sad has sukoon because it is doubled, which means that the sad here is sad that has sukoon plus another sad that has the vowel. Now, as for the second scenario, if you have followed the lesson series of Nun Sakina, you will know that Tanween is considered as a type of Nun Sakina. So in this case, if Tanween or Nun with Sukoon was followed by Hamzat Wasl, it would also cause two consonants to follow one another. The first in this case is the Nun Sakina, and the second is the letter that follows Hamzat Wasl, which is dropped when you keep on reading, and link between the two words. And to get over this problem, you will simply add a kasra to the tanween at the end of the first word, like in these examples. وَنَادَى نُوحٌ ابْنَهُ وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزِلٍ. Here we said نوح ابنه. So we added kasra to the tanween at the end of the word Nuh. Another example. وَالْوَزْنُ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقُّ. Again, the same thing. The tanween at the end of يَوْمَئِذ received a kasra at the end of it to prevent two consonants to follow one another. One last example. وَالْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ الَّذِي جَعَلْنَاهُ لِلنَّاسِ سَوَاءً الْعَاكِفُ فِيهِ وَالْبَادِ. Same story. The tanween at the end of the word sawa received kasra to prevent the two consonants to follow one another. Finally, it is also very important to know that this second scenario has a special name in Urdu Mus'haf, which is Noon Qutni, which is indicated with a very tiny noon with kasra under Hamzat al-Wasl to tell you that you should add kasra to the tanween in this case. Let's check out the same examples in Urdu Mus'haf to see how they look like. As we can see, under the word ibnahu, we have Noon Qutni, which is this tiny noon that has kasra under it to know that you should say وَنَادَى نُوحٌ ابْنَهُ. Also, in the following example, it is the same scenario and we say يَوْمَئِذٍ الْحَقُّ. And the same story is present in the last example with سَوَاءً الْعَاكِفُ. So this Noon Qutni indicates that you should add kasra to the tanween to prevent two consonants from following one another. So, to recap, التقاء الساكنين means two letters with sukoon following one another. If this happens within the same word, there won't be any issues or adjustments to be made. But if it happens between two words, it will either be that the first word ending with long vowel with no signs, and the second word starting with Hamzat Wasl, and in that case, you will drop the long vowel completely. And if the first word ended with tanween and the second word started with Hamzat Wasl, in that case, you will add kasra to the tanween at the end of the first word. And in Urdu Mus'haf, this is indicated with a small noon that has kasra under it. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something new today. If you did, please like and share the video for other people to learn from it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.